I figured for this topic it would be easier if I just bring up my emulator, bring up the 3D art games, and show a few examples, rather than pull up images and stuff. I feel it's just easier that way. Saves me editing time, and it better reflects of video content. And I will be showcasing some stuff here. And the topic of this here is the importance of the 3D art stages, Deception and Armageddon specifically. And a big thing with uh, Deception, when it released, it had so much, and you can see it on the blurb of every copy of the game. It shows off so much. Obviously, there was the fact that there was essentially 4 different games in one. You had the regular fighting game, you had the adventure mode with Conquest, you had the puzzle game with puzzle combat, then you had chess combat, which is literally the perfect Mortal Kombat. It is the best way to play Mortal Kombat, in my opinion. There is nothing as good as chess combat in terms of the franchise's gameplay, in my opinion. But we're focusing on a change to the regular combat here, which, as the blog describes, interactive multi-tiered arenas, including brutal death traps, which is a perfect little summary of what a lot of stages offered in Mortal Kombat Deception. Now, Dead Alliance had various actually really cool stages. All of the Dead Alliance Deception stages, something that has never been done in any other games. They get their own little lore description, kind of like a bio, but for the stage. Even though a lot of stages end up not being like relevant to the story, such as Deadly Alliance's drum arena being from this outworld village called Makiba. That's not a part of the story at all, it's just a thing. Or a Deception example would be Yin Yang Eye, and this island that's mysteriously in between Earthrealm and Outworld. It's a very weird one, but it's very cool. And whilst the Alliance had absolutely nailed like designs and lore for the stage, it wasn't until the search where you got the proper interactive ones. Deadly Alliance had, well, for the acid bath stage I'm showing here, the little Buddhas you see, they will spit out acid and the camera will like change when you get near them, and the acid would damage you. That was the only like unique interactable. There were some like destructible objects, for example, little icicles in the Linkway stage. There were a few little things, so there was depth to them, but mostly they were like most of the 2D games where it's just aesthetics for the most part. Of course, Deadly Alliance, it was still a massive change in the actual gameplay because you had the 3D environment. So you had that multiple movement. That wasn't just left, right, go up, down, where you had a lot more movement and mobility. And you also had, like, here you had tombs you could break. So yeah, there were a few things, but it really wasn't until Deception where things really picked up for the capabilities of 3D Mortal Kombat and what the stages are capable of. And that's where this comes in with the interactive state. Something that carries over to Armageddon. Armageddon has even more stages. A lot of them are from Conquest. The Conquest ones are the ones that remain, like the typical ones with no background and no like specific interactables, but it's still cool stages and whatnot. Armageddon, unfortunately, doesn't really have lore for a lot of stages, which kind of sucks because they don't do the bio thing anymore. Again, Armageddon was a rushed game. In terms of the development was rushed. The game itself doesn't come across as rushed in the total package for the most part, but it is noticeable when you have missing stuff like that was present in other 3D games. But yeah, the stage in Armageddon is so cool, but I will show you some Deception stuff first. So like the beetle there, you see the icons here, the little axe that represents a stage weapon. These are the most these are the least important part. Sorry, there's the changes. A lot of weapons are considered not that useful. The slaughterhouse, for example, here you could get a cleaver and actually do some pretty cool stuff. if paired with the right kind of right move stuff. That was the thing. The picking up a weapon style would act like taking a regular weapon style, but most of these didn't have any strengths. They had very basic stuff, although that was a quirk of a lot of the regular weapon styles. But the main gimmick, the thing that they typically go for with these weapons, these stage weapons, are they deal easy, high damage, but they are quite risky, both in the sense that a lot of the attacks are unsafe, and in the Slaughterhouse's case, they're in dangerous positions, not just because of the pickup animation, but also because there's a death trap right next to it. And you know what, the Slaughterhouse is a good example. So I guess we will be checking that out. The little yellow arrow refers to a stage interaction, something that changes the stage. It's not a death trap, but it is a transitional animation, which usually takes you from one part of the stage to the next. It's essentially having multiple parts of the stage in one. And these are really cool. And the death traps with the Red Skull, they also trigger animation when you get to them. But these ones do end around. They kill you. The death traps can be disabled if it's not your thing, which I get, because I guess it can be annoying if you're just knocked in your full health. But I think it adds to the chaos. And I think but because they are like hard to trigger, because you need to get them right up against the traps. It's harder in more other stages, like the Falling Cliffs one is really cool, because parts of the arena just fall down, and it's easier to knock you off the cliff as the stage goes on. So there's other like unique quirks to stages like that, where stuff changes over time. Yin Yang Island will have a Earth Outworld cycle, and when it turns to the spooky or dark purple Outworld aesthetic, the surrounding water becomes a death trap. You can knock people into the water, and then piranhas will just munch you and you die. There's so many little quirks, and it easily makes Deception and Armageddon's stage selection the greatest the franchise has seen. There are no stages that come close to this, because of how much interactivity and uniqueness goes into them. The lore in so many of them is top notch as well, and the designs are really good. But if you take that stuff away, the core gameplay here is really interesting. So yeah, we will jump into a Slaughterhouse, give an example. But I feel a lot of you will be familiar with it, a lot of it, because there's so much. I can't just cover all of them. There are so many examples. There could be multiple death traps in one stage, like the Lower Mines has 3 death traps. There's just so much variety, and that's what it ends up being. I haven't actually played on mobile in a while on the emulator. I've been playing on my Xbox copy of this recently though, and it just reminds me of how much I love this game and how underrated the stages are, how important stages like this actually are. I'm going through. So this area here, first you have like different spaces, obviously, just because it's a 3D environment. So you'll have just unique like shaped spaces. For example, the chess combat stages, there's quite a few of them. Those are just regular square spaces, and 3 of them don't actually have any interactables at all. The Deadpool and Pit variants, they do have their own death traps. Deadpool, you can fall into the acid, and the Pit, you fall into the spikes. Like death trap. They would recreate like stage fatalities. Like Armageddon has a really cool subway stage. You can get knocked onto both sides of the track. And there's just so much more engaging when you have what 3D offers, all the interactivity and stuff that just can't be replicated in a 2D fighting game. It's some of the coolest stuff, and it makes every stage feel unique. It's not only just the background. Like if you play like say MK11, that's the latest game, you will play that, and you don't really care what stage you're picking. By MKX, because MK9 had no interactables, because MK9 is bland as fuck, quite frankly, MKX finally brings back some interactivity with some like regular stuff you can interact with. It can be like mobility stuff, which typically don't work because they're actually unsafe as fuck. MK11, or you have like weapon ones which are MK11. They will trigger crushing blows, and those are like fine for the most part. They can also be disabled, but they are nothing compared to what a 3D offers. And again, it's not like any of this was considered bad. This is all really cool. And even though death traps are quite a controversial one when it comes to competitive play, you can just disable them. It was an option both offline in the regular options and online. And here you are. You could smash someone through the floorboards. There's the stage interactable. And now you go onto this lower layer, which, as you can see, is basically a completely different stage. It's really cool. And this is a pretty iconic part with the grinder here. Excuse my gameplay because the fucking D-pad's tiny. Right. You had the sage weapon here, which is surrounded by the green. Typically, sage interactables are surrounded by yellow, but you also have cases. The Chamber of Artifacts is another one where you break through the floor, and in the Chamber of Artifacts one, you actually throw people back up through the ceiling, and then you like sand down on the other side. Chamber of Artifacts also in the middle of the room. There's this gem you can smash through. Like with Day Alliance, there's still like objects you can smash in all the games, like Armageddon, a subway. You could break through benches and pillars, shit like that. Deception, again, there's a lot fewer of them because they have more unique stuff going on, but it's still quite good. And I can't fucking remember how to actually pick up weapons on the GameCube version because they don't have like a specific button for it. I feel like it was one of these, like you have to press multiple ones, but I don't know anymore. But you can pick it up, right? You can pick it up, and you can use it. It acts like its own fighting style. You can use switch fighting style to get out of it. That's pretty cool. So you can set up some like, unique combos. The hot poker is a pretty iconic one from Armageddon in the Firewall, which unfortunately doesn't appear in any actual regular tower stuff, big Florida 3D era stuff. And something I kind of want to touch up on in like some video, but also I don't like bashing, like I don't like critiquing negatively these games because I feel like a lot of parts of it get like a bad rap anyway. Such as the characters. But yeah, I think I think that's a shame. And like in even in Deception, when you unlock stuff, it overwrites other like regularly unlocked stuff, and because the tile stuff isn't actually randomized as set presets. This means like stuff like certain characters, although in Deception I think it's only Cabal. I could be wrong there. It's only Cabal who can't be fought against. Once you unlock stuff, that is. And also the Chamber of Artifacts and the Pit can be played in regular combat, which is a massive shame. My recommendation to go around that is the chess combat arenas. A lot of them you have to unlock, and they do kind of overtake the preset stuff. The 5 of them, and obviously you get one, you have them all, and you start off with the Pit. And the pole stage is already unlocked, I think. No, that's not right. Living Forest, pole. But if you hadn't noticed, the Deception chess use the revamps of classic stages, whereas everything else is like brand new, which was a cool little touch. But yeah, I don't have it all unlocked on this save. This save I haven't really unlocked anything. It's a GameCube save. But yeah, you see the Pit, that's just Death Trap there. Lower Mines. Dark Prison is really fucking cool. One of the interactables here. I just think interactions aren't just, I described it as it's a little stage transition thing, but there's other little stuff. Like the Dark Prison, the prisoners will grab you if you get close to the bars, which is you vulnerable to getting caught up in a combo. You don't experience it often because you're usually not caught in proximity, but when it happens, it's fucking crazy. It's crazy to see, and obviously the, little Easter eggs of seeing all the characters in the cells. It's really cool. And the Falling Cliff. Falling Cliff? It's just, there's no S in the GameCube. That is curious. That is very curious. As you can see here, I'm pretty sure in the Xbox version and the PlayStation and the Xbox version of Deception are the same. It's cliffs, not just cliff. That's a little thing I've learned. Oh, that's interesting. The music for these stages fucking slapped. Like, this is peak MK music as well. I've had unique soundtracks. Unfortunately, in Deception, it seems, I don't think it's a problem in Dead Alliance or Armageddon, but Deception has like a few music issues in the GameCube version. Like, I think the Golden Desert one will play the right music for your first time in the GameCube version. Then it plays the Lower Mind music, I think. Something like that. I can't remember the specifics, but it's quite odd. Another thing was the Quantum Pass. Some of the daylight stages are just brought over to the Deception, Quan Chi's Fortress and Quantum Palace, which then gain their own death trap. Quan Chi's Fortress is a little like spider web thing that slices you in half. And then you have the what was it? Oh yeah, Quantum Palace, which you can be knocked into lava in that one, in the Deception version. The only problem with that one is it shares the Nexus music, even though it had its own unique music in Dead Alliance. But that's a universal thing throughout all the ports, which is weird. The music kind of fits it. It's just weird how they changed that. I don't know. There's interesting little things here, and you can see here like there's nothing showing up for these. These are all the conquest ones, cool locations and stuff. But unfortunately, they're not interactable. Fortunately, on top of all that, you have all the ones here. This is like complete unlocked, and even some of the Deceptions are just ported over, like the Nevership Interior, which has some additional interactions. This one especially, you can be knocked through the fence you see there and brought down to this lower area. And you can hit the corpses, and they will like swing around like they react to your stuff. They have like proper ragdoll physics, and they can even hit your opponent. And there's like some crazy unique combos they can actually do just off the hanging corpses. For example, you can find videos of Chakia who has corpse combos, specifically corpse combos. It is crazy. There's also the glass windows in the first section that can just be smashed, which is cool, and it does extra damage. So yeah, I'll show you. Czech is an absolute like legend for like the old 3D era content. You could get you can just find a ton of combo videos from the time from this guy, just a ton of them. Really old kind of videos. Like if you look up, what I did yesterday was MK Deception Hotaru combos. His stuff, just tons of different combos I recorded over a decade ago now. You'll just get all of them from this one guy. So shout out to Czech. Check out some of that old stuff. I'm sure there's other stuff, you can find like old online footage. There's a lot of old stuff you find. You can play Mortal Kombat 3D era online. I've got an Unchained to work. I have a tutorial for it. Or do I? No, yes I do. I have a tutorial for that. What I don't have is a modding guide, because WB copyright struck me for some reason. 2005 game that I'm teaching how to mod. That's not copyright, but whatever. I digress. So, yeah, I could go on and on with all the examples, all the unique weapon stages, some of which do appear in like Creative Fighter as like the model. You can customize what they do, but that's another thing. And there's just so much cool stuff. The bell tower here is a unique one where you can actually get a stage fatality. Stage fatalities, in the 2D games, it's after the match you can do a stage specific animation, which is basically what the death traps are the evolved version of, because they're actually integrated into gameplay and not just a shitty little animation. That for some reason still happens in the modern games. Like MK11 updated the game just to add 3 little stage fatalities. Why? Why? I don't get it. It's kind of just like an obligation at this point, which is dumb because the 2D stages just aren't on the level of the 3D stages, really. Bell tower, you can get knocked down, you hit the bell, oh my god, it keeps closing. It's a little quirk with the fucking Armageddon one, is it automatically takes you back. I don't like the menu. By the way, these Conquer stages don't show up in arcade, so that's a thing. Which is fortunate because it means you get the more unique interactive stages, but unfortunately because you can't actually play normally because Versus is only against an actual human opponent. I have a mod for this Armageddon that lets me do it. I have like all the code I need to have it, so it's kind of broken in places, but typically I can do regular matches, and then sometimes it ends and like thinks it's in a tower and thinks I'm in practice mode simultaneously. It's cursed. And that's how I do my my little the Versus series. Something I've said I'm gonna bring back, but I still haven't, even though it's very easy to do and it gets me a lot of views and people want it, where I just pick a character, I put him against a character, I put in a description, a little story, and I just make him fight. That's something that Armageddon really could have done with like an actual built-in exhibition. I shouldn't have to mod the game to be able to do that, especially in the Everyone Is Here game, where you have the most stages in the franchise as well, because of all the conquest stages added on top of the mass section. Because the thing is, these are large selections, you know, in the 3D games. Even though like Deception and Armageddon, most of the stages are like entirely unique, which is fucking crazy because you get like MKX is like 8 shitty stages with no lore, really boring atmosphere, and yeah, there's just like a really small amount of them as is. It's baffling how much the franchise has regressed in this. I know it's like a natural thing with going to 2D, but I think the stages especially are something that is quite forgotten of how great these were and how impactful they actually are to the gameplay. And something that I think should go back. And I think the 3D stages alone, seeing what Deception Armageddon managed to make of stages, it's enough to justify going back to 3D, because I do think this franchise works better as a 3D IP. It evolved into a 3D franchise. Then NetherRealm Studios went back for nostalgia's sake, and now everyone thinks it works better in MK, even though the 3D era, you know, hasn't gotten a modern chance. Just saying. And yeah, the battle arena is really cool because actually it does actually reuse a lot of like death traps from other stuff like spikes, acid, lava, and like a grinder that was in the lower mines. They reuse that, and they're all in like each of the corner of the arena. This is based on like the MK2 arena, and it's the coolest version by far. And then at like the top of it, you can pick up the Wrath Hammer, and it functions the same as Shao Kahn's Wrath Hammer in the actual as a playable fighter. It's really cool. It's one of the coolest stages of the franchise, which I can say for most of these stages. Like, if you're looking at like the top 10 stages in Mortal Kombat history, they're all going to come from either Deception or Armageddon, as far as I'm concerned, because they offer so much. Both, like they nailed the theming, they nailed the music, you know? And then on top of that, they play differently. They play very unique. And something, you know, coming to another games, the Firewell is really fucking cool because you get a hot poker. You have like a upper level and a low level. There's conveyor belts to knock people on. This is a remake of an MK4 arena that is gone completely forgotten. Yeah, there's just so much. It's all really, really cool stuff. Cocoon and Prison is another one. Alongside the Bell Tower. The Bell Tower you could specifically... I didn't even explain what the Bell Tower one was. I was too busy complaining about stage fatalities. But it's like specific death traps that only trigger at the end of the match. Cocoon in Prison is this big fan in the middle. You can uppercut people into it on the finishing screen. You can't in the regular game because it would be too easy. And in the Bell Tower, you can knock people through the floorboards and they land on the spikes, and like this this little mouse takes your leg away, which is, it's very goofy. It's a little like Easter egg thing. That started Armageddon with those two stages, which is kind of cool. You know, it's just like even more added onto the great variety already in these stages. The Soul Chamber is actually like a very weird anomaly because this isn't a conquest stage, but it plays like a Deadly Alliance stage where where there's like these little like soul orb things you can break for damage, but there's nothing else, which is very weird. It's a cool looking stage, but yeah, that one's definitely an odd one. But yeah, there's so many. I'm not gonna try them out because knowing my emulator will probably just fucking crash. But there's so many cool ones. You can look up footage of like all the death traps and whatever. It's all really, really solid stuff, and there's so much of it that I cannot make a video showing you it all or just telling about it all because there's so many. Hell's Foundry, that's another fantastic one that we haven't even touched upon, where you get crushed by the big crush you see in the background. There's just so much. And I think I made my point here. That this is like, the stages alone make 3D MK my personal preference over 2D. Because they add an extra layer on top of the fighting. Now the stages are an actual core component of the gameplay. And I really fucking like that. And it's something that I don't get why no one wants it back. I don't see many clamoring for it. Even though when I was a little noob to the franchise and I saw the 3D gameplay for the first time, that was fucking crazy. Just because it's in 3D, but secondly, seeing the stages and all the chaos, like seeing Dark Raiden and zombie Liu Kang fighting in the dark prison of deception, and getting hit into the Crusher thing, that is crazy to see without any context for the history of Mortal Kombat. It's just something that I don't see get acknowledged enough. And as a matter of fact, I see it get more hate because people are very critical of the death traps because they're salty crybabies and don't realise there's a disable death traps button. So that's where their argument kind of falls apart. And me personally, I love the death traps because they add chaos and stuff. And obviously have your normal stages anyway. So yeah, that about covers it, you know. Well, it doesn't. You get the gist of it though. In terms of covering all the specific stuff, you just got to look at gameplay, try the games for yourself, because I think the stages alone sell Deception Armageddon for me. You know, like on top of all the other great stuff, the great features, the fighting styles, the great gameplay, the stages at the end of the day are a really important part of Mortal Kombat. And when it came to Deception and Armageddon especially, they were an important part to the actual gameplay itself, not just to the game's identity, which is what's becoming the 2D stages, where you get these really cool backgrounds, but that's what they are, backgrounds. They aren't like arenas, they aren't these stages, they aren't that interactive. You have some interactive elements, but not to the extent of two games from the early to mid 2000s that include more stages than modern games, even after like Aftermath update. MK11 still doesn't have as many stages as Deception, which is in like the 20s. It's insane. No other MK game even like tries to get that close. So yeah, it's just really cool. And yeah, that about does it. Thank you for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.